Hey, everybody, the coffee is hot. Welcome back to Great Mondays Radio. We have Dr. Natalie Baumgartner, who is the partner of Contemporary Leadership Advisors, where she leads the culture practice. I have followed Natalie and her work, her research for a very long time. She has done a lot of groundbreaking research into culture, into how organizations work, into organizational network analysis. And so I wanted to, as you know, I've been thinking a lot about the effects of the kind of the post-COVID world, what the workplace looks like, and how that is changing the way that we work. And Natalie has done quite a bit of research on how organizations can, like what they're suffering from and how they can insulate themselves from some of the shocks and the challenges. And so that is what I'm hoping we're going to get into. Natalie, thanks for coming on Great Mondays Radio.
It's wonderful to be here, Josh, and the feeling is mutual. We've been following each other around in this culture
That's
world for
right,
a while.
exactly. Since the very beginning.
Hmm.
Well, Natalie, it's taken a little bit to get you on, but I'm really happy to have you here. What I have been thinking a lot about is um, the degradation of relationships since kind of this whatever the impact that whatever drove it, the sort of hybrid distributed work world that we're in. And it's and I have observed that those relationships are falling apart, and then the fallout of that. And so I wanted to hear a little bit about what you have learned from your research around what it means for an organization, what relationships mean to an organization, and if I can preview that it's not just a nice to have, it's a have to have.
Yeah, I that's well said, Josh. I think if someone just asked us, do relationships matter at work? Most people would head nod to that. But really, the what the pandemic made so clear is that the ways, and first of all, those relationships are essential. And it's not just I know Gallup has shared research for decades about having a friend at work,
Yep.
but it goes, I think, in our research shows much further beyond that. And what we found is that those cross-functional relationships are part of the glue that really holds people to their role and to their organization. And it was really the advent of the pandemic that made that extra clear, because so many of those relationships, those cross-functional relationships, they occur organically, right? They're fostered organically by walking in the office.
They
You see
used to be.
someone, they exactly historically, that's how they were nurtured. Running into someone in the hall, grabbing lunch and saying, oh, actually, I was thinking about you and your department, and I have this idea. And when that stopped, and it's not, this is not to say that hybrid remote work is a bad thing, because I just want to be clear, I certainly don't think that's the case. But that organic chemistry that was occurring pre-pandemic went away in many cases, in large percentage of cases, when people didn't come back to the office on a regular basis. And so what we found is that one of the impacts of that is retention. Employee retention has really been impacted. So when people have cross-functional relationships, they are far less likely to take a call from a recruiter. They are far more likely to um, endorse the fact that they can go to others across the organization for help and support in achieving the initiatives that are on their plates. They also are just generally reporting being more engaged and more productive at work. So all of those factors hit the bottom line, and which beg the question then, well, how do we foster connections inside the workplace in this new post-pandemic world of work?
All right, so I'm gonna before we get into kind of the next piece of that, how do we know that it's causation and not correlation? How maybe it's the folks that are naturally going to be connecting with other folks. Those natural networkers are the ones that are more likely to be successful. maybe that's the case.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I love it. The researcher, as a researcher by training, I appreciate the distinction there.
Yeah.
And so we're able to slice and dice that data. I mean, some of this is surely anecdotal, for sure. In our work at Contemporary Leadership Advisors, right, we're working with organizations of all sizes and across industry, and we're hearing anecdotally these concerns that big initiatives aren't being fulfilled in the way they used to, particularly ones that are requiring cross-functional collaboration, change management initiatives that require people to come, to work cross-functionally to bring them to fruition are more challenged today than they were 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And organizations are able to point to these groups don't even talk anymore, right? They just like, and so it's not that it can't be addressed, but it has to be addressed with intention. So part of it is these anecdotal stories that we're hearing that are sitting beneath that data. But also when we look at, we're able to control for these, for other variables when we're conducting this research. So we're able to control for whether someone's identifying more as an extrovert or an introvert, or whether our network, the organizational network analysis that we conduct at CLA, we're able to literally see, right, and then the network data, whether these individuals who are maybe likely to just be connectors in general, versus people who are connecting cross-functionally and in different departments, and those are different groups of people, and the mechanisms that get them there are different. So
Mhm.
you're right, for sure. I mean, there are people. What I would say to that, Josh, is there are people still. If you've got, if you are listening right now, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, I have the same great relationships I've always had. You know, the likelihood is, to Josh's point, you are probably someone who really fosters those relationships, and you're internally driven to do that. What we need to have happen inside organizations, though, is for those relationships to be agnostic, or not care about how we're wired. They have to occur. They have to exist for organizations to achieve their strategic goals.
Yeah. Um, so there was research, Microsoft did some research, I think a year and a half into the pandemic, that demonstrated exactly this phenomenon, which is we are closer with our project teams or our departments, and less close, further away from, have weaker relationships with anybody outside of that. And so is that what your research is bearing out here? Are we continuing in this now that we're out of kind of the immediate reactionary state of, oh, we all need to be apart? Now we're kind of settling into, oh, we're going to be hybrid, or maybe we're going to be fully remote. Are we still seeing that trend? Is it getting worse? Is it staying the same? Is it moving in the other direction?
Yes. Well, great question. Absolutely, people. I mean, I've never seen a piece of data that would suggest otherwise. What I mean by that is that people always are going to be more connected to their managers and the people on their direct team.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply, we know that if you go back to developmental and social psychology literature, we are most connected to the people we spend the most time with. It's just the reality.
Yep.
And so I don't, that hasn't changed. And so we're actually not seeing, to that point, if you look pre and post pandemic, we're not seeing an issue with people being connected with their managers and with their direct teams. In fact, during the pandemic, we saw is people reporting a better relationship with their manager than they'd ever had before.
We just were
Because
spending more time with everybody.
exactly, you
Yeah.
can't say, hey, I know we're supposed to meet today, but I've got this meeting, so I'll catch you, walk by someone's
Yeah.
desk. I'll catch you
Yeah.
later. And you have to set up a Zoom or
Yeah.
a Google Meet, and it was obvious if you were going to cancel it. So those relationships are really intact. And then when you think about how companies have gone back to work, and there's a whole variety of how companies or organizations are managing that, but a high percentage are asking or requiring that people are in the office with their own department or team. And so, but what they're not focused on is that cross-functional pollination. And so what we're seeing is,
Yep.
yes, that exists. People are still mostly connected to their manager and their direct team. I don't think it's ever been a concern. I don't think it will be a concern. The concern is that those cross-functional connections have really gone underground and are not happening in the way they need to for organizations to to effectively achieve success.
I'm so it just occurred to me as you were talking that there the we're sort of seeing this. I intuitively and anecdotally saw the weakening of these relationships and the problems. You did it through research, but most folks, it seems like what you were just saying, hey, you have to spend, so Airbnb, for example, you have to spend a week every quarter in person with your team. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. That's great. That's the how do I get it done? Fantastic. Check it off the list, they say. Like we've solved this problem. But what occurs to me is that it's not evident. It's not as apparent, right? You have to go through a few more links or a few more jumps to get to the reason why we need to have better relationships outside of our project teams. And
Yeah.
that it's just going to be a lot harder for an organization to say, or a manager to say, okay, we're going to meet with our who, right? Like you're going to meet with your team,
Mm,
but also everybody. We don't have this anymore. And the
yes.
square footage used to do that hard work of building those relationships that
Yeah.
were not immediate.
Yeah. Right. Exactly so. So, um, first of all, I want to say that I think the need for cross-functional connections and working relationships hasn't, it isn't a topic of conversation because it wasn't the case that it used to need to be a topic of conversation, right? So those, like I said, those interactions happened typically organically, much
Yep.
more so than they do today. What we hear, so our clients are saying things like this massive change initiative is stalled and it is not getting off the ground and it's taking far longer than we anticipated. And we're running into these friction points between different parts of the organization that have to work together if we're going to succeed. Or we have these strategic goals that we have to achieve by the end of the fiscal year, and we've got pieces of that happening in the organization, but because the pieces of the organization aren't working together seamlessly, the whole organization isn't lifted up in achieving those goals.
Yeah.
And so, um, because there's been so much focus on are we in the office or are we out of the office, as opposed to when are we connecting? Like if the conversation were about who's connecting and when, I think we would get to the right solutions. So, for example, there are organizations who say everyone in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? You're still coming in the office, in a hybrid way, but we're here together so that we can. And when we're together, when we're in the office, we're not on calls or on a Zoom or Google Meet or what have you. We are in interactive
Yep.
meetings,
Yep.
right? We're capitalizing on that time, and ideally, at least a percentage of those are cross-functional. So the goal has to be set first of all, right? We manage what we measure. So if the goal is you need to be solving problems cross-functionally with the right teams together in the room,
Yeah.
that changes the behavior then of the
Yeah.
organization and of the people.
Yeah. All right. So we're making the case. Folks are nodding along. So when I guess, well, so it must be true then that we're seeing the silos that we've been working so hard to break down for the past 20 years build back up. I guess I just wanted to, I mean, I think that's what you're saying. I don't know that there's anything to, I mean, yeah, like that's what I'm intuiting here. It's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
we've been trying to and now it's happening it's going to get even worse. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That just occurred to me. That's so
Yeah.
insane.
Well, so I love that you brought that up, Josh, because when I think of when organizations get to a point where they say silos, they're using the term silos, usually they've hit, a pain point, right? Like
Yeah.
when they're categorizing that differentiation between groups as silos, they're usually aware that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so yes, we are talking, I'd say my hope is that organizations are cross-pollinating more intentionally in the months and years ahead to avoid the sort of walls building up between
Yeah.
parts of the organization that create silos.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, I will tell you that I've gotten more emails asking for help regarding silos in the past 6 months, just 6 months. I mean, I think a lot of that separation has come home to roost. Like the problems have come home to roost now. It's been long enough
Yeah.
that, yes, to your point, Josh, organizations that were like, I think we're fine, are realizing we're really not fine. But I do want to say this. I think that I really believe that the main ingredient for shifting this is intention. It is awareness and intention. I do not think this is an insurmountable problem. Like, well, because we're hybrid or remote, we're not going to be able to solve this. We have to think. I believe that, and I've seen it be very solvable. We have to shift how we think about how we get our work done,
Yeah.
and bring intention to bringing, in not just like to sing kumbaya, right? Like, but project specific, initiative specific, problem solving SWAT teams. We're bringing people together and saying, together you unify and attack this issue or solve, achieve this goal. And if we do that at the more senior levels we do that at, the more that trickles down through the organization
Yeah.
and sets the model for working together.
So are you suggesting then that the one way to solve this, if I can just, maybe I just want to repeat what I heard just to make sure I understand what you're saying, is in order to head off the dreaded silo, it is a leader's job, leader at whatever level, however you want to categorize it, to create projects that bring cross-functional teams together, or to identify projects that require bringing teams together. That's the intentionality. Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
I would put very close. I would just say, look at existing projects and identify where cross-functional conversations, connections, problem solving, strategizing, where that's likely to help either solve the problem, achieve the goal. And, we work a lot with executive leadership teams, C-suite teams. And I'm in those rooms, either virtually or in person, a lot. And those are the conversations that are happening, right? Like, so how does sales need to work with engineering on this initiative? How, does InfoSec or IT need to support marketing and achieving this goal? And so usually it's not, most goals to be achieved in organizations, if you look at the strategic level, and most problems that need to be addressed. So both of those buckets are solved better when we're thinking cross-functionally, when we're thinking about ways to work together. When executive teams when they're working in silos and they're like, yeah, I'm not, I've got my baby here and you've got yours there, and never the twain shall meet, and we'll just sort of report out to each other when we get together, then
That's,
we're missing the boat. And
yeah.
it happens all the time. And so I guess I just want to clarify, I don't think we have to, I guess my point is, I don't think we have to create artificial reasons for this to happen. I think they exist. They're everywhere in organizations. We need to start thinking about our goals and our problems that we're running up against in that way. And when it starts at this most senior level of leadership, I will say it is the easiest then it's the fastest route to combating this issue of silos. It's not the only route, but very often what we hear, it's like people down deep in the organization, they're the ones feeling it and
Yeah.
are frustrated and are filling out their engagement surveys or their
Yeah.
culture surveys and saying it's a problem.
Yeah.
But it's very hard for them to shift the tide without senior leaders saying, we're not going to do it this way anymore.
There are two blockers that immediately show up for me when I think about the experiences that I've had with working with executive teams in this particular case. One is my data points, my KPIs, the things that I'm measured on as a leader of a particular group are not cross-functional. And therefore, anything that I'm not focusing on on my specific group is time and energy away from that. And so I can hear past clients in my head saying, uh, all right, that's fine, but we have some shit we got to get done this quarter.
Yeah,
And I don't that's going to take a lot to get those people together, and I just don't know, maybe next quarter, like
totally. Yes.
that's kind of what I hear.
I just was writing a piece this morning about the ideal and reality, and this, like, how do you close the gap, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, ideally we would all, right, like, yeah, be, in a room collectively working on things. 100%, Josh, you're right. People, leaders of organizations, their number one job is to achieve the goals that they've set out for their division, their piece of the organization. I think it's about identifying legitimately, where does connecting with other parts of the organization allow them to do that more effectively. And I find when that question is asked of leaders, they can identify very quickly, like, well, yeah, we are running into trouble with X, right? But because we are just being conditioned to function in this siloed way, it's put to the side. It's like, I don't want to go after that feels like a whole can of worms. I'd rather just stay in my lane and focus. And that's why, when ideally those conversations
I
are
love it.
happening
Yeah.
at the C-suite, so they're just, they're illuminating, if you will,
Yes.
how it can actually help them achieve the goals for their part of the
I
organization.
have this problem I'm
Yeah.
trying to do, and you're like, can we look at how we can help you solve that problem? That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. That is it's a very satisfying answer, because I'm like, these people are not doing, they're just not going to do it. But that's what you have to do, is you have
Yeah.
to hook them with, what is it you're trying to achieve, and how do we bring those things together? Um, so I would endeavor to guess that most of the people listening here are not necessarily in the C-suite. So for those folks that are not don't have the C in their name, the chief in their name, what can they do? Or whose
Yeah.
responsibility is this? I mean, my hobby horse is culture is everybody's responsibility, and also I know that I have gotten many questions that sound something like, what if my, C-suite isn't doing the right thing, don't believe in culture, whatever it might be, what can I do? So if I'm not, I have some level of control, but not all of it, what can I do? Whose responsibility is this?
Yes. And I'm glad to address that, because it can be very frustrating being in a position where you see the path and don't have the either authority or um, voice at the table to
Yep.
affect that change.
Yep. Yep.
And so I have seen miraculous, incredible things, success happen in organizations. So even though we just had a whole talk track, right, soapbox about like getting the leaders to join
Uh,
hands, it's
yeah.
because if you'll recall, it's the fastest, away, right? And it sort of clears those shrapnel out of the way for everyone else. That said, amazing things can happen everywhere. And do not underestimate the outsized impact of small adjustments. So if you have an initiative, I mean, just even having that lens of, this is a goal in my world, I haven't thought about it. Is there any benefit that could come from getting input, even just input from another part of the organization, reaching out, developing an alliance? So often now, and especially I would say for people who've come into, in the workforce in the last 5 to 7 years. So maybe they were early, early in their career, very early in their career before the pandemic, or have come into their careers during in the pandemic, or in this, post-pandemic world, might not have established inside your organization those relationships because they weren't ever in the building when it was just happening by
Exactly. This
osmosis.
is this is no hypothetical that you're coming up with. This
Yeah,
is the reality.
it's the reality. And so just, I would encourage, if you're listening and that's, and you are in a role where, right, you can't sort of mandate this to happen, simply developing relationships, reach out and develop, one relationship in 3 or 4 different areas of the organization. I promise you, 90% of the people you reach out to will take your hand and will be like, this is great. I mean, that is human nature. It is rare that I hear someone got their hand slapped and like, no, I
Yeah.
don't want anything I don't want to make this connection. And in doing that, and especially if you do that in areas where you're like, yeah, I do have this initiative, and I kind of wondering what that part of the company thinks about this, or maybe they have a lens on what I'm trying to do that could be, useful to me, or to solving this problem. Or I see a problem in this other department, and I have this idea that I can't believe, we're not talking about. So make the connection. And even if nothing comes of it in terms of,
Yeah.
achieving in goals, again, the data suggests that it enriches the quality of life at work for humans. So that data around it keeping people at work is not just about solving problems. It's actually, it speaks to who we are as humans, and that we really thrive when we have connection that's sort of multifaceted. And
Yeah.
so maybe all you do is you make a new colleague, friend, maybe a mentor, and that's great all by itself. But I would suggest that probably other great things will come from it as well.
Yeah. And I think the approach is, what do you think of this? Or let me hear your opinion on it. Because I don't know about you, but if anybody says, we'd love to hear your smart thoughts, I'm like, absolutely, would love to help you. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly right. I was like, people, I tell the the consultants in our firm that are newer to consulting, I'll say, like, it's so rare that if you reach out to someone and ask them to tell me your story, give me a sense of how how your path, or how you've approached this problem before. It is
yeah,
very rare that someone will say no. And exactly, Josh. So ask questions, right?
yeah,
And just say,
yeah.
I want to hear your perspective, get your lens on this. And I would put a lot of money on the likelihood that relationships will be formed, which will serve you in many ways.
All right. Last piece of this conversation. Let's talk about even more specifically, people managers or people leaders and their specific struggles around this hybrid work and what they can do for their teams. So we've talked about the executive team, we've talked about leadership, we've talked about individuals. What about people managers? Um, are they struggling as much as some of these other folks inside the organization?
I actually think they have the hardest road right now. I mean, during
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic, so we did a lot of research. We consistently pre, during, and post pandemic, and the research during the pandemic identified people managers as being the most negatively impacted by this advent that we've experienced in the business arena. And many, and if you're listening, maybe this is true for you or true for people, if you're a people manager, the vast majority of people managers don't receive training on how to actually manage people. So very often they either, because of the point they are in their career, or because how successful they've been as an individual contributor in their space, there's a whole host of reasons, sort of elevated, but very often they're not empowered to be, to have the full tool set. So I have a tremendous amount of empathy for people managers, because so much is expected of them, and very often not enough support is provided. Now, fast forward, so that's historic. Now we go into the pandemic and post-pandemic world, this hybrid remote world of work, and managers, for better or worse, whether we want it to be true or not, if you're a people manager listening, whether we want it to be true for you or not, are the direct conduit to the experience of culture inside organizations. The person you work with the most is, even if it's not every single day, but has the most influence on you, for better or worse, who you tend to have the deeper conversations with about your career or about the initiatives you're working on, is your people manager. And that by way of that, they need to be giving you this experience of culture. Like, hey, here's like the glue that keeps you here and happy in our organization. And so we hear from many, both people managers and HR leaders, who are reflecting on their people managers, saying that they're feeling around in the dark around, how do I create this great experience of a strong culture of connection and belonging at work, now that when my people aren't even here with me. They might be around somewhere in another part of the world. I may never have met them. I might never meet them in person. And I have Maybe I have 30 minutes with them every week or every other week. And how do I foster this experience of, culture and connection and belonging? So yes, I think they are actually, every group inside organizations are struggling in a different way. But I would say their people managers, it's the most palpable for us. We hear about it the
Yeah.
most, and we need to really empower people managers with tools, like things they can do in the course of business, right? Every day. They don't have to, you tell a people manager, like, and now we're going to give you 17 things to do off the side
Something
of your
else to
desk.
do.
Yeah, like
Forget it.
that's a non-starter, right?
Yeah, non-starter. Right, exactly.
Yeah, we have to give them, very empower them, and I use that word really intentionally. Empower them, give them power by giving them some tactics that they can use in the course of their work to bring an experience of that culture and a real connection. And it's things like recognizing people, for when they're living the values. Just, it's simple. Like, hey, I heard you did that. I heard from someone, like, you did this awesome thing. That's, and one of our values at CLA is bring the donuts, which is like, we're here for our clients. You really, like, brought the donuts yesterday, and that was so cool. That took 30 seconds, right? Or,
Yeah.
when you welcome them to your team, helping them understand, like, this is the culture here, but this is what it really means. Like, this is how we really function, and this is who I am, and this is like a cheat sheet to me, your
Mhm.
manager, and tell me what yours is so that I can, support you really well. These tactics don't take long, but we do have to be intentional about them, and we do have to give them to people managers.
Yeah. Yeah. Lots to cover. I think we covered a lot. We could go further, but I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. I think that's a great point to stop. I think this is really interesting. Dr. Natalie Baumgartner, partner and chief research officer at the Contemporary Leadership Advisors. You want to learn more about her work? You can find her at leadershipadvisors.com, contemporaryleadership.com. Thank you. Sorry, we're going back and forth on what was the right one. Contemporaryleadership.com. She's also on LinkedIn. This was really, really interesting, uncovering the importance of cross-functional relationships, which don't happen naturally anymore now that we're in the hybrid world. Hey, Natalie, thanks for sharing your wisdom and your stories with Great Mondays Radio.
It's been my pleasure, Josh. Thanks for having me.